like to welcome everyone to today's SWANA e-learning event, Successful Waste Diversion at Colleges and Universities, presented by Michelle Leonard, Vice President at SCS. Everyone should be seeing a slide with the title of today's event on it and a list of some of our upcoming webinars. You can see all of our upcoming webinars on swana.org. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know about a few items. First of all, SWANA serves more than 8,000 solid waste professionals throughout North America with conferences, certifications, publications, and technical training courses. Members save money on SWANA offerings through member-only rates, including substantial discounts on webinars and other learning opportunities. As a member, you'll join other solid waste professionals who find it easier to make connections, enhance business operations, and expand career opportunities. Read more under the membership tab at swana.org and join SWANA today. SWANA would also like to let you know about 2 recorded e-learning opportunities that are available. First, SWANA offers a recorded version of the Transfer Station Systems e-Series, which examines best practices and industry standards in transfer station planning, design, and operations. This e-learning opportunity is sponsored by Caring Compactor, recognized as an industry leader in compactor technology. Also sponsored by Caring Compactor is SWANA's Manager of Landfill Operations, or MOLO e-Series, available in full as a recorded webinar. MOLO examines best practices and industry standards in landfill management and operations. Before we start, I'd like to explain some of the features of our webinar platform. First, you can download a copy of today's presentation slides by selecting the file at the bottom of your screen and then pressing the Download Files button. To send a message during the presentation or during the Q&A afterward, please use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. The Participants box shows you who is on today's SWANA webinar. To indicate you'd like the speaker to be louder or speak more slowly, use the raise hand icon at the top. After the presentation, there will be time for Q&A from the audience. Our speaker today, Michelle Leonard, has nearly 30 years of experience in environmental consulting and project management with emphasis in solid management planning and facilities. She's assisted public and private sector clients in the preparation of solid waste management plans, designed and implemented waste reduction, recycling, and reuse programs, and evaluated existing programs to identify opportunities to reduce, reuse, and recycle solid waste. Ms. Leonard has a strong working knowledge of solid waste management regulations and practices and has presented numerous successful projects to city, county, and state regulators. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to our speaker for today, Ms. Leonard. Michelle, you ready?
Thanks, Jesse. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you can hear me okay. I'm calling in from Pasadena, California, where we're enjoying a beautiful and sunny day, and I hope all of you are also enjoying a nice morning or afternoon as well. So I'm going to talk about some programs that we've been involved with here in California. It's at a couple of universities and colleges. This was a session that I did present at WasteCon this past fall in Long Beach, California, and was asked to repeat it on the webinar today. We're going to talk about the results of the efforts at these 2 colleges to increase waste diversion. Both schools have conducted studies of their waste streams and have implemented a variety of programs to reduce waste and increase diversion of recyclables and organics. Sorry, get the technology here. So basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about why colleges and universities are unique. What do they generate in terms of waste and recyclables, what they're doing to reach zero waste, and then present a couple of case studies, as I said, from 2 institutions here in Southern California. So why are universities and colleges unique? Well, they're really different from typical programs that we target residential or commercial waste. First of all, the students are transient. They may attend a university or college for plus or minus 4 years. They're typically on campus for 9 months of the year, and so that presents its own challenges and opportunities. The faculty on the campus, they have their obligations to teach, to conduct research, to publish, and they really have other priorities, I know it's hard to believe, than solid waste and recycling. And there's a variety of generators on a campus. Those can range from administrative offices to classrooms, laboratories, housing, operations and maintenance, dining. And so really any program that's implemented on a campus, one size will not fit all of the types of generators. Back in 2009, we conducted a 2-week waste characterization study of multiple generators at the Caltech campus here in Pasadena. And the purpose of that study was really to identify the sources and types and quantities of compostables in the waste stream, materials that might be suitable for energy production. And they recognized that there was a lot of packaging waste at the campus, and they wanted to identify opportunities to reduce that packaging and or to repurpose some of it. So we conducted, as I said, a waste characterization study for 2 weeks. The maintenance staff collected the waste throughout the campus and brought it to a central area where we conducted our sampling and our sorting. We recruited students to help in the study, including some volunteers from the environmental committee. I have to say that most of the students participated for 1 day or less and then decided that that really wasn't what they wanted to do. And as a result, most of the work was accomplished by the maintenance staff, the consultants, as well as the campus sustainability manager. We sampled a variety of generators, including 6 academic divisions, housing, the central plant and shops, buildings and grounds, and the dining hallways. You can see from this picture that the campus had purchased biodegradable food serviceware, but at that time, most of that was still getting in the disposed waste stream. And then you can see also a variety of food waste, the takeout containers, as well as paper towels. The results of the study were not terribly surprising. About half of the dining hall waste was found to be organics, and that was primarily food scraps. And then about half was paper, and again, that was primarily corrugated cardboard. And then plastic made up the rest of the waste stream in the dining hallways. The campus has a number of different types of laboratories, and so that was a target generator for this study. And what we found, you can see in this picture, was a lot of lab plastics and a lot of packaging from the laboratory plastics. Each plastic type of laboratory ware came in its own separate packaging. So there was a lot of that in the laboratory waste. For the biology division, about 85% of the waste was comprised of paper, and that included office paper and mixed paper and paper towels. Plastics were about 25%, and again, that was that packaging and labware. And then glass as well, glass labware. And then finally, organics, about 10, 11%, and that included some food, but also rubber and even some small pieces of wood. In the chemistry and chemical engineering labs, about 90% was, of the waste stream was comprised of paper, and again, paper towels and mixed paper. Labware was in that glass category, and then the packaging plastics was about 14%. It's interesting to note that I think it was around the first or second day of the waste composition study, we were identifying a lot of paper towels in the waste stream. And that typically isn't a subtype of the paper category that we sort for, but we added that to our list because it was such a large quantity of the waste stream throughout the university. And that showed to us that we needed to be a little bit flexible in our study to be able to take into account some of the unusual waste that was coming out of the university. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about Caltech. Caltech is a scientific and research college located here in Pasadena. It was founded in the late 1800s, and it's affiliated with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, also located here in Pasadena. So a lot of research, technical studies. There's about 2,100 students enrolled in the school and about 900 faculty and staff. When we conducted the study in 2009, the campus was attaining about a 40% diversion rate, and this pie chart shows what we found in the overall waste stream, the disposed waste stream of the campus. So about 75% of the waste stream was made up of paper, organics, and plastics. Again, paper, that 42% was a lot of paper towels, as well as office paper, journals. We found that when a professor was moving out, they basically disposed of their journals, magazines, and notes from various lectures. The organics, that 22% was comprised primarily of food scraps. The campus does collect their landscaping waste separately, and that goes for composting or alternative daily cover at local landfills. And the plastics, that 14%, was comprised of the labware that you saw in those earlier photos, as well as a lot of packaging waste from that labware. Caltech has a long history of looking at their waste stream, and they've collected data over the years. They try to keep track of their per capita, and you can see it's been pretty consistent since early 2000. The dip that you see in 2009, the sustainability coordinator there admits that that was really a result of when he came on board and didn't have the mechanisms in place to track the waste stream. But presently, you can see they're at about a half a ton per person per year generated on campus. The campus has a long history of recycling, and in fact, they have a recycling center on campus that is open not only to students and faculty, but to the community as well. It's a drop-off facility for a variety of materials. You can see in the lower right-hand corner the types of materials they collect there, including we have a bottle bill here in California, so the CRV is our California redemption value for containers, plastic and glass containers. The recycling has experienced a steady increase. Again, I think that dip that you see in 2009 was just a reporting challenge that they were experiencing that year. But about 900 tons per year are collected in 2012. And I think, again, some of that decrease that you see was in relation to the overall economic conditions in the area and people just not consuming as much. About 75% of the recyclables are made up of paper, cardboard, the green waste, and the CRV, that's the bottles and cans under our redemption program. And the campus does collect those separately so that they can receive the revenue from their recycler for that material. The campus has tried over the years a variety of on-site collection methods. In that upper right-hand corner, you can see the recycling center, and which is lined with a number of 3-yard bins for the collection of all types of recyclables. So white paper, white office paper, colored paper, newspaper are all collected separately. They contract with a local recycler here in Southern California who services that facility, and as I said, is open to the public. And so the surrounding neighbors, even though they may have recycling at their homes, bring in other materials that can't go into their blue recycling bin, or some of the multifamily residences that typically had not been serviced by curbside recycling also use the on-campus recycling center. But over the years, they've tried a variety of containers. You can see some of those. And I think the challenge was that they tried too many things. And so recycling, the signage, the containers were not consistent. And so they experienced a lot of contamination, and a lot of the materials were not getting into the correct bin. So as a result of the analysis that we did, as well as we helped them to receive a grant from the state of California to enhance their recycling program, they've now gone to this 3-bin system, which you see up in the upper left-hand corner. So CRV is collected separately. Again, that's the glass and plastic and aluminum beverage containers that are under our bottle bill. And then on the right side of that container are all other recyclables, so paper, cardboard, and other non-CRV containers. And then in the middle is anything that cannot be presently recycled on campus. And those bins have been placed throughout the campus. Using the grant money, we also implemented the Big Belly solar containers in some of the high traffic areas, and that helped the campus to keep track of the recyclables and seems to also be effective in keeping contamination out of the bins as well. In some of the offices and classrooms, we've also placed bins for the separate collection of cardboard and white paper in those areas that really generate high quantities of those types of materials. The organics, as we said, was about 22% of the disposed waste stream, and was another target of the university to get out of their disposed waste stream. And that primarily comes from the on-site cafeterias, as well as some from the labs and classrooms as students stay late and tend to eat there. But it was primarily from the cafeterias. So the first attempt that the campus made was to collect that material separately. The hauler placed a 40-yard bin in a location on the campus, and the maintenance and crews would collect the food scraps from the cafeterias, place them in the 40-yard bin, and when it got to a certain fullness, the hauler collected it. But that presented some challenges in terms of odors and in terms of also a lot of liquids in that bin, and the campus paying a lot of money to get that liquid collected and taken to the compost facility. So the next step was they looked into a dehydrator, and they selected and chose the SOMAT technology, which basically is a dehydration mechanism that reduces the quantity, volume of waste by about 90%. The first effort using that material, they had some challenges with the consistency going in and coming out of the mechanism, and so they subsequently added a pulper up front, which then facilitated the materials to be dehydrated in a much more efficient manner. Being a very technical school, they did a lot of research to decide on this type of technology. The mechanism used processes about 250 pounds per day. All in all, with the cost of the technology as well as the installation of it, including a concrete pad and some electrical connections, it was about $50,000 to implement this system. They've had some good successes, both in terms of recycling and composting. The Big Belly Solar has enabled them to really track the types of materials that they're collecting. The new signage has really simplified the system, and throughout the campus is much more consistent, and we're seeing a lot of good results in terms of reduced contamination and increased recycling. The partnership with the recyclers and the haulers has been enhanced, both with the recycling and composting. The composting, as I said, was they paid about $50,000 to $60,000 for that, but they really had a commitment from the top down to implement that program. They've reevaluated the to-go container, and they've eliminated the biodegradable containers because at this time there wasn't a place for those to go, and they were paying a premium for those types of materials. And as I said, they've eliminated that paying for that water weight in the composting bin and the odors and some of the other issues that came along with trying to just transfer that stuff off of the campus. And through both the composting and the enhanced recycling, they've really increased student awareness on campus of the waste diversion and waste management programs. Some of the challenges that probably are very familiar to many of the people on the phone today is just getting the word out and educating both the students and the faculty. We have increased the number of bins throughout the campus, but that was a challenge early on. And again, just the issue of dealing both with faculty and staff of, I'm here as a student or a faculty. It's not really my job to get involved in recycling. On the composting side, the staff has done a good job in educating the dining hall staff and getting their buy-in in the program. We've learned that one size doesn't fit all, and so we've really concentrated on the dining halls at this point. The next step will be to look at other areas of the campus, including housing, to get some of the additional organics out of the waste stream. And one of the other issues is the dehydrator produces a compost material that can be used on campus for some of their landscaping areas, but they're generating more than they can actually use on site, but they're looking for other area users that might be able to take some of that, including a large botanical garden that's nearby here in Pasadena. The next case study I wanted to focus on is Pomona College. And Pomona College is also an old campus here in Southern California. It's about 35 miles east of Los Angeles, founded in the late 1800s. It's a small liberal arts college. They have about 1,600 students and a couple hundred faculty with 14 residence halls and 3 dining halls. Pomona College takes a little bit different approach to their waste management system, and so when they looked at their waste stream, they looked at all the materials that were generated and what is presently being done with them. So in 2010, when they looked at their waste stream, they had about 42% compostables, of which 34% was actually being composted on campus in a small composting facility, and they had about 14% plastics at that time. In 2012, they got a new recycling coordinator who set out to enhance the program, and as you can see in the chart on the right, they've had some success in increasing their on-site composting. They've reduced the quantity of the CRV, that's the redemption bottle bill materials, from 4% down to 2%, and they've really done a good job in reducing plastics from 14 to 2%, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Their emphasis on this campus is on waste reduction. So some of the things that they've done at this campus is they looked at their waste stream and said, we've got a lot of to-go containers out of our dining halls. And so what they've done now is they've actually implemented a program where each new student is issued a reusable clamshell container and a mug that they are encouraged to take with them to the dining hall when they go for lunch or for dinner. So they eliminated the paper cups, and they eliminated they still offer the clamshells, but they encourage people to bring their reusable clamshells. And then the other programs that they implemented was a greenware event kit where for on-campus events they have a full set of reusable dining ware, cups, forks, knives, plates, and bowls that anyone hosting an event can utilize for their event as opposed to disposable plastics. And then those are returned and the maintenance janitorial service washes them for the next event. So there was an upfront cost related to that, but they have experienced about a 6% reduction in those materials going to the landfill. Some of the other successes that they've enjoyed is collecting food scraps in the dining halls. And as I said, they do have a small on-site composting facility, and so they've seen an increase in the amount of materials there. And then one of the other programs that I think is very easily replicated on campus is this end-of-year resource recovery sale. When the students move out and they don't really want to take home all the posters and furniture and clothing that they may have amassed over the year, they have a giant yard sale. And that's resulted in a reduction in the amount of waste that is disposed at the end of the year, and then that money is used for the program enhancement. And so they're hoping to really expand on that in the coming years. Some of the challenges that they've experienced there are similar to Caltech and probably similar to some of the things that you all experience in your program, and that's education and getting people to understand what we're trying to do and to get people to change their behavior. Again, we're dealing with a transient population that's there maybe 8 to 9 months of the year and 3 or 4 years at a time. We've got a faculty that may or may not be engaged, and so they're continuing to identify ways to reduce waste and divert more materials from their waste stream. Paper recycling does remain a challenge there. They've got a variety of different types of paper, and just getting that paper collected and separated from the rest of the waste stream is one of the areas that they're targeting in the coming years. So they've still got about 50% of the waste that could be diverted, and like I said, they're continuing to identify new programs to increase their waste diversion. That's the formal presentation, and I see there's a number of questions here, so let me try to address those at this time. Nancy asked, how will the recently announced cuts in water availability affect the demand for compost? Great question. I think we're going to see a increase in the use of compost. As we know, it can help to retain water and reduce the amount of water that's needed for landscaping. Again, I think that's an education issue as well, and we're seeing a number of programs trying to promote that, getting people to understand the direct connection between those two. Jeremy asked, how are the plastics and paper separated from the cafeteria waste before it's pulped and dehydrated? So right now they're just using the waste that's in the kitchen, not the post-consumer waste. So in the kitchen we place designated containers for the waste both from food preparation as well as food that was not consumed. The product is the product that comes out of the dehydrator is, I don't know if you can call it a compost, but it is can be used for application as a mulch, so it doesn't have to go through any further composting before it's applied to plants or other areas in the campus. Nancy, what's the real unsubsidized cost of compost? Are there any private investors willing to take the risk of putting their money in composting? What they, at Caltech, they, as well as Pomona College, what they've realized is the savings in reduced tip fees. So not sending that ton of waste to the landfill here in California is about, ranges between $50 and $60 a ton at this point. So those are the savings that they're realizing from reducing that amount of waste that's going to the landfill, either by composting it on-site in the case of Pomona College or using the dehydrator. I think he estimates that the payback period from that dehydrator will be about 5 or 6 years when all is said and done. And again, at Caltech, they were interested in the technology as well, and so to them, that's an interesting part of that project as well. And they have adopted a zero waste to landfill goal for the campus, and so they felt that that was one of the waste streams that they needed to target in order to reach their zero waste goals. Any other questions or comments?
And Michelle, did you address the second question from Nancy Peterson about the resin?
I'm sorry, where?
Second bottom. I can read it. Are you factoring in the reduction in the amount of resins used to manufacture plastic containers in the last 5 years?
I'm not sure, Nancy, what your question is, I guess.
Okay. And Nancy, if you want to specify a little further the question, what you meant there, we can address that. And Larry Thompson has also typed in a question. Can you add the dehydration waste dust to your compost pile as a concentrate?
That's my understanding, yes. Brad asked about paper recycling and what paper recovery initiatives have been attempted. We've, at the Caltech, we've put very well-marked bins throughout the university offices and classrooms, and including at photocopiers and printers. What we found when we did our initial evaluation there was, again, it was very inconsistent, and different buildings had purchased different bins, and so when you went from one building to another, you really weren't sure, were they collecting mixed paper or white paper. So we've tried to be more consistent throughout the campus in how those materials are collected. And by collecting the mixed paper, we've increased the quantity of paper that's recycled. The campus doesn't get as high a rate and revenue rebate from the recycler for the mixed paper, but they decided to collect it mixed to increase the quantity and, again, decrease the amount that was landfilled. In the case of the containers, although I recommended to just collect all containers together, when they looked at their revenue from the redemption value, they made the decision to collect the CRV, the bottle bill containers, separately, because they did make a lot of money from that effort. What else can be done with the dehydration waste for value? Again, it can replace other mulch materials that the campus was purchasing for their landscaping. I don't think it's a saleable item. In other areas in Southern California, these types of dehydrators have been implemented at food courts at some of the large shopping malls, and they're using it for, again, the landscaping, plantings at the malls, but it's really a waste avoidance. It's about a 90% waste reduction, and so that goes right to the bottom line in terms of waste collection costs and disposal costs.
And we can wait a few more moments for additional questions people might have. I did want to take a second to remind everyone that a copy of today's slides as well as a video recording of the event today will be emailed out later this afternoon. So if you missed any part or would like to review any parts, you will have the chance to do that.
The other thing with the paper recycling is the campus has really tried to eliminate putting up signs and sending out memos, and so trying to use much more in terms of electronic emails and memos. They're trying to get faculty and staff to share publications so that you don't get 10, 20 copies of the same scientific journal, but getting people to share them and using a routing system for that. When we were doing the waste characterization study, what we found was just piles and piles of scientific journals and publications, particularly when a professor might be leaving the university. And so they've tracked in the mailroom which publications are coming in multiple copies and trying to reduce the number of subscriptions to those, and then having a routing system for sharing of those publications. That was a big part of it. And then the paper towels, and so the university has gone to installing hand dryers in many of the restrooms, and that was a big portion of the paper waste at the university as well. For the waste characterization study, we did a week's worth, and so we collected waste for a 5-day period on the campus. So we did have a good, I think, representative sampling for each of the generator types. And did we sort any specific percentage of each container? As you saw in the initial photo, the maintenance staff brought us the bags from the waste containers, and so we weighed each complete bag, and then sampled the bags, and then did our analysis based on the percentage of the waste stream from the total campus. We had good data that they'd collected over the years on how much waste was collected from the campus, as well as the different buildings themselves. So we were able to correlate percentages of each generator to the total campus.
And we can still give a few more moments to any additional questions that people might have. And while you may be typing those in, just want to remind you about a few upcoming events. Next week, we have a webinar, Creating Art and Community with Renewable Energy, an interesting project that will be presented by Tim Muth of Jackson County Green Energy Park. And then the following week, we have a special webinar on February 19th, Food Waste and Organics, which obviously is of interest to people on here, a search for solutions to the next big thing in solid waste. That'll be a webinar with 2 presenters. The first one will be Jetta Antonakos of the City of Tacoma, talking about their Excellence Award-winning program. That will be followed up by a presentation from John Fisher of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, who will talk about the Massachusetts Organics Action Plan. So 2 speakers, 1 webinar. It should be a good time. If there aren't any further questions, we can go ahead and close things out for today. Michelle has put her contact information on the screen, and that will be in the slides that you all will have. I'd like to thank all of you for these great questions and your participation. And of course, Michelle, I'd like to thank you so much for your presentation today.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for joining us today.
I want to wish everyone a great day and a wonderful rest of the week, and I hope to see you on a future SWANA webinar. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.